As are still pending, we will settle out of court. But I really do want to thank you for your courage, the power of the pen, and to show that, as they say, tough times don't last, but tough people do. Those who harass you, those who detain you, those who cause you to climb high wall fence, I'm not sure where they are now, but I noticed you quite cleverly excluded them, or they are representative from your program. If I were you, I will bring them. Let them have the burden of refusing to attend. But let me also say that I'm going to start from the last statement made by the activist. I think the media also have to do something so that Magu will have less job to do. I once asked Kazim, I said, every governor in Nigeria get invited for best governor of the year, most creative governor of the year, most educated governor of the year. Even an absentee governor was described as the most ICT governor of the year because he was running government from somewhere in, your mouth will always put you in trouble. And when this invitation come, as I receive many, you are asked to go and buy table, platinum table, gold table, and you pay and you get the award. Few months later, EFCC comes and roll out all the crime committed by the same people that have been so lavishly celebrated by media. And I guess it's because the economy is constricting, so products are not being advertised for you to make legitimate money from advertorial. So you now have to advertise politicians regardless of their color. Every governor has had awards. Even those that EFCC is fighting or they have succeeded in convicting, they have award. So I hope that before the media gives a governor award, let them get clearance from Chief Magu and say, do check, is he eligible? Because it must be very embarrassing when you roll out the red carpet for those who are developing the country, only to find out the very day that the editorial board was wrong. They should lead this fight, like you have led some other fight. The second is, I listened to the activist MD of Airpeace. To be honest, I have seen you at a distance, probably the first time I'm seeing you one-on-one. You probably would have met me try to get peace at 30,000 feet, but I'm not sure I recognize you. But I was very impressed when you showed that even businesses that are primarily motivated by what Professor Jega in his military days we call primitive accumulation and appropriating the surplus value created by we, the working people, that you can, when it matters, fly the Nigeria flag to go and pick people who were stranded in a country in which we as children were asked to contribute even from our meal ticket for the liberation of Southern Africa and South Africa in particular. But you know, like you said about tribalism, some people say, and I heard in one Mama Put, I don't want to sound like the late Tai Solari, I have no proof. And they said you went there because most of the people are people who wear red cap. But by the time they arrived, we find that they were wearing cap like the gentleman in front. And it shows that, like you said, everything you do, people will try to read meanings to it. But the good thing is that when you are clear, do what you believe is right, and let the gossip world continue with their gossip. It should stop men of goodwill from doing what is right. But the protest, which the MC didn't want to mention, is that why didn't you also send plane to Italy? Is it because they come from my place? So not only did you not mention my place, you didn't send plane to Italy. And my MC is very angry over that. That's why when you were to speak, he was looking at that escape door. So you may still have to send Airpeace to Italy so that we have peace in our place. But on a more serious note, I want to appreciate Professor Jega. You know, I keep apologizing to you, and I will never stop apologizing because I attacked him like an attack dog when I was facing the election in 2012. In the year that won the election by 74.6%, all the local government, that people say, okay, But you were abusing Jega earlier. I said, yes, why not go abuse them? When a woman is in labor room, those of you who are good lovers, who follow your wife to labor room, beyond the bed, beyond the other room, you know the way they curse their husband when that child is about to come out. It is as if everything was by force, by fire. But as soon as the child comes out, the mother will smile. So I will never stop apologizing to you, because indeed, you did make fundamental qualitative improvement in the way in which Nigeria elections are managed. And you face the typical problem that a typical chief executive faces, whether in business or in politics. While you were determined to introduce those wonderful innovations, and I believe including the introduction of card reader, which has helped substantially to prevent periwinkles and other things that have particularly decreased from voting, people were also working hard to see how they undermine it. And you will be shocked to find that people who had worked under your predecessor, who happily you didn't quite mention, but when you keep saying from 2007, I say no, maybe a little after 2007. By 2007, the proclamation, which you have condemned, by the chief of state was that the election was a do or die. Happily, we didn't die, but he himself wanted the third term, and that third term died. Courtesy of our parliament and courtesy of the electronic media that decided to carry live broadcast to the National Assembly. I think my only regret this afternoon is that I don't see many of my co-signers who are leading various political parties. And I cannot do all the confessions on their behalf, because as a Catholic, I am only encouraged to confess my own sin to a priest, not to confess the sin of my neighbors. But you did cover all of the issues. And to be honest, there is nothing an INEC leadership can do as an election management body if all the other players, particularly the politicians, feels that the right to win election is a birthright. And any attempt not to win means that somebody has cheated and somebody must be dealt with. Unfortunately, within the rank of INEC, you inherited people who were trained by your predecessor under a culture of do or die. It is those people, Kasim will understand it, because I shared with you then my experience. When people who have worked in INEC and retired, I'm close to measuring their name because I have evidence, but I would rather not do so, came to me, some of the issues you said today about delay of election materials. They could really be real logistic challenges, but sometimes they are deliberate. An INEC official told me if I don't bring X millions of dollars, some of the things they can do is to delay materials that will come to Edo State, and they will target the area where they believe I have the strongest vote. And that time I was backing, calling your name wrongly, but because I had no one else to call, I found that within the heart of Benin, where my support base was very strong, for materials that ought to have arrived at 8 a.m., this material hadn't arrived by 11 a.m. Yet in the village of my chief Tomato, who is now resting in peace in heaven, God having forgiven me my sin, and all of us pray for that, he had his own materials ready. And I cannot reach you because you don't want to talk to players, because like a match, a referee, you don't want to be having conversation with team coaches while a match is going on. And I was almost being dealt with because those warning signals were given, I was told, if I don't pay X, those materials will be delayed. I didn't ask for any favor. And once I saw those early warning signals, I had to start shouting. And thank God it made a difference. And I am here, even though now expired as a governor. But I do appreciate the courage that you brought into the leadership of INEC, the innovations that you introduced, and the difference that those innovations made. But even more salutary is one thing I've learned from your own style of leadership, that a leader, even under extreme provocation, should put his eye on the ball. Otherwise, what happened in 2015 could have been different. Anybody who can play back and saw your general composure, even in the face of those deliberately planned instigation, harassment, abuse, will always learn something about leadership from you. And I think you could establish an institute. Besides being a member of PROP, you should also set up an institute to help all of us in leadership position to understand how we can maintain our head even in the face of provocation. But there were some issues you raised which I thought required that we problematize further. Sir, you said electorate need to be mobilized. My own experience is that the Nigerian electorates are very well mobilized. It is the political class who need to be enlightened. On a typical election day, you will find that the voters have queued up waiting for materials. And if those materials have not arrived, it is not only because of genuine logistic challenges, it could be because somebody has arranged with your agent not to bring those materials on time. The Nigerian electorate understand the need to vote. They are not the one who carry cutlass. It is the agents of political parties that resort to tactics, including firing gunshots, to discourage normally peaceful, loving people from going out to carry out an exercise that can easily lead to death penalty. And those parties that approach INEC for money to mobilization, they are the result of that unfortunate Supreme Court judgment, which says you cannot deny registration. People register political parties for commercial purpose. They register them to negotiate and to trade. When I said so at the eve of the last election that I will not negotiate with those mushroom parties, people say I should have kept quiet. Because they are there to say 40 of us have endorsed a candidate. Meanwhile, even they don't have 40 votes. So we do need to revisit the additional body arising from a political system in which you have a ballot papers with 90 political parties and you are struggling to identify the logo of the real genuine parties. I think those are things that can be done. I don't think PDP, as much as I would like to, I shouldn't praise them for obvious reasons. First, because they will pay me for a free consultancy. I don't think they will approach INEC to give them money to do voter education. Obviously, APC will do so. I can almost measure 4 or 5 or 10 who will approach you to give them money for that kind of exercise because they are registered not to win votes, but to make money from the fact of their registration. And even your monitoring department, those who do accreditation for election monitoring, even that has been commercialized. That people approach me, I have 200 slots. I can give you 50 slots. If you pay me this and I give you our tag. There are many things that have gone on. I think one word that addresses all of these challenges is the one that Magu should be interested in. That word is corruption. If the policeman chooses to protect election riggers, it can only be because he has been corrupted. If the soldier abandons the prestige of wearing those otherwise elegant authority of the Nigerian state to go and aid election rigging, it's not because it's in law. He probably doesn't even know the candidate. It's because of corruption. So to the extent that Magu deals with these issues and election corruption is reduced from the electoral process, this will work better. I am sure you spoke only of the NYSC people. I believe you are also troubled by another wonderful innovation that you introduced. When you insisted, and I believe, at least vertically, rightly, that lecturers should be returning officers. Because as lecturers, they are supposed to propagate the ideas of society, the ivory tower. They are the idealists who want a perfect world. They tell us of the danger between imposition, they lecture us about the fact that even dictatorship can build bridges. And that what makes democracy attractive is not what we call democracy dividends. Because even dictatorship has dividends. Some of the wonderful bridges in Lagos were done under military dictatorship. But no one is too good to spoon-feed us as a nation. The power to hire and fire must reside with the electorate. That is the beauty, of democracy. So you introduce these lecturers, just the way they do, they mark. Is it something for marks? They bring the same thing now, and in Edo State we are able to send one or two to prison. A lecturer from otherwise one of the best universities in Nigeria. So all of this points to more complications, that we've got it to a point on which you will ask who will cast the first stone. If lecturers are not done with selling marks to students, whether male or female, they now monetize being election officers. Regardless of what happened at the polling booth, the crime now shifts to quality centers. I'm sure you did that as a lecturer in your time. You know what it is to be a lecturer. People command moral authority. Again, these are things that you may need to review, but I don't know where you are going to find the agents to do it, but we must keep searching for solution. And you made one point, which I think is my final comment on that. Once a nation lacks the capacity to creatively apply carrot and stick, reward good behavior and sanction bad behavior, nothing and absolutely nothing will change. I think that is the situation we are in. I want to thank you for what you've done for Nigeria, and each time people invite you to give lectures, I remember what I told our late uncle, Gobadia, because after him it was Iwu, and all the wuru that surrounded our election that time. I said, why is it that we are never invited to lecture other nation states about election? They always come to tell us how they did their own. But each time I hear you have been invited, not only within Nigeria, but outside Nigeria, I said, now we have produced a Nigerian who has taught the world that it's possible for a Nigerian to organize as to pretend over, not the absolutely perfect election, but like Obama will say, an election that was substantially better. The operative word is better. And if you keep getting better and better and better, one day you have excellent election. The issue of voter turnout, I have a problem. When you base your decision on percentage of turnout, with all due respect, that may be less than helpful. Because I know for a fact, in spite of all that you have invested in voter card, or the PVC, truth is, we still have multiple registration. You will find, for ease of clarity, that if tomorrow INEC announce a review of the a new voter registration, which is targeted primarily at those who were not up to the age of 18 during the last exercise, you will find people of my mother's age queuing to register again. And so, in truth, a lot of the PVCs that are not distributed, their owners do not exist. And political parties still believe right now that INEC has come up, or the judges have resolved that if the number of PVC that have not been used are such that if they were used, the outcome of the election would be different. All of those pronouncements, our clever politicians use that to further do more registration. And that reduces in terms of average. I think what might be more helpful for us is to look at the actual number of voters, provided that we factor in the element of periwinkle that vote in part of the South-South and the way is used in the Southeast. In the northern part and in the West, I believe elections are generally freer, and you can see it from the results. But these are issues that we can't canvass in an impromptu intervention. You also said something, sir, about strong leadership and internal democracy. And I'm like, this is very problematic. When the leader is weak, the party leader decides who become candidate. You want to stand firm and insist on the rules, you offend big people. These people corner the media and you come under attack. I saw people commenting during the APC primaries. How can comrade deny governor? How can comrade suspend a governor for doing this? Why you know governors are powerful? Is that not the real reason we should, in a democracy, shows that nobody can be more powerful than what the laws prescribe? It makes no sense to smash cricket when the elephants are going away with blue mother. For me, by my orientation, I find joy in moderating the power of those who think they are above the law. There is no joy in convicting people who stole chicken, while those who stole billions are moving away with or without senior advocate. But it requires courageous leadership to get that done. The struggle for eternal democracy is a real one, like you rightly observe. And unless we get it right, a lot of ordinary people who don't have money will never want to contest election. But let me now turn to my friend Tambuwa. I want to thank him. He's my very good friend. I appreciate him. And because of what was done to him, I also, I like to be practical. The IG that did it came to join APC. He wanted to go to Sydney, and I said, no. If you had blocked the National Assembly from operating, APC will not be in existence. How can you come now? You want to be a senator on our platform? I said, no. Although you have security thing to share with us, but we can do without it. So tell him that I use my privileges to make sure that those who deny him access, that we also deny them access to use our party platform. But there is something we must discuss, sir. There are huge issues of morality because no society survives strictly on the basis of rule of law. Even more potent are core values that we imbibe. And a society that is not driven or pay adherence to those values, we can't survive. When a Supreme Court has given a ruling that it is parties that win election, even though I have my reservations about those judgments, but they remain the law of the day, how can then a Tambuwa win or a PDP wins an election and Tambuwa become speaker, and then he takes the speakership and join APC, which was suitable for us? But the danger when a bad president is laid is that he now joins us, become a governor. APC was elected governor, and then he took our governorship and returned it to PDP. And now he tried to justify it that last time we had APC elected, majority in the National Assembly. On that basis, Saraki became Senate president. He took APC Senate presidency to join a PDP. And people were talking about it is lawful, it is not lawful. The tradition I'm coming from, if I have to choose between what is morally acceptable and what is lawful, I will go for what is morally acceptable. Because I learned very early in my trade union life that the challenge of modern society is the tension between justice and judgment. I want justice. That is what every ordinary people want. But the ruling class want judgment because that may be procured. But justice, you understand what it means, I understand what it means. I want to submit with respect that we must work to avoid creating and sustaining negative traditions that will weaken the foundations of our democracy. If you are elected as a PC, and on that basis, you acquire certain position, if you must leave the party, the honor, the part of honor, is to drop that crown that belongs to the party. But I say this with authority because the first time we benefited, APC. The second time, we lost. And therefore, if you think today is convenient for you, next time it may not be convenient. We must have strong ethical commitment. If it is lawful, is it right? Unfortunately, the law is clear that when you decamp, your seat should be declared vacant. But when it is the presiding officer who should declare the seat vacant, is the one who decamp. How do you do it? Of course, we can still go to court to get a judicial pronouncement. But people take advantage of the fact that by the time you go to court, to the first preliminary objection, to the second preliminary objection, to the first hearing and counter hearing, the tenure would have been over. I want to say to all of us, myself inclusive, law is good, but commitment to morality and strong ethics is even much more important. Otherwise, we are all potential candidates for prison if we are completely bereft of any commitment to ideas of fairness, of what is right and what is wrong, and we are guided only by the technicalities of the law, which is just as Jegawu implied in his statement, laws are made according to the values of those elected to parliament at any point in time. The last one that I was not mentioned, I take to heart very strongly the very, very eloquent and powerful statement by Mr. Peace. Because you've actually helped us, if people don't know, your intervention in South Africa, was a big statement about how we can, when it matters, come together as a nation and downplay what divides us. Because those who brought Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and even the new majority, which I belong, the minorities, they were all there. In that plane, they were united. They even crafted, brought Nigeria flag, and they were singing Nigerian national item on arrival. I almost wept when I saw that. And that there's in Nigeria like you, there are people who are much, much richer than you. And I'm not an aviator, but I know it's not the most profitable business, particularly in the Nigeria environment where state institutions create rules and laws so that you wonder whether you are not working for the air authority or you are working for your own shareholders. So we can't thank you enough for that, but let me conclude by saying, my worry for Nigeria right now, sir, is not what could happen to imperfect election, but even the nature of the election is being affected. The quality of political discourse and conversation is being hijacked by unelected, and I might even say unelectable ethnic champions. How can a man in his 80s attract a banner headline from a major newspaper? Nigeria will break up. And I say, you enjoy Nigeria until you were 80s. Now you are dying. You want it to break up so that your children will not enjoy Nigeria. And who are these guys? They have managed institutions, not with much success. Even educational institutions, they couldn't manage them well. If they were ever elected, they were part of the military system. They deal with every governor, every government of the day. They just want to survive. And once they are not in government, then Nigeria should go to pieces. They want us to restructure, but who put the structure the way it is? These are the guys who celebrated the dismantling of the regions. They lecture us as children that the imbalance is because one region is so large, the other ones are so small, so let's create more states so that we have element of the same people in there. When, I might say, at the time their life is almost being extinguished, they are the one asking us, return to this, return to that. I think that those whose future they are debating ought to have a greater voice. So when ethnic champions tells their people, don't vote for this party, vote for that party, they are not electable, even within their family cycle. But they purport to speak for regions, they purport to speak for religions, and even pastors have come in, and some politicians go before pastors who are themselves sinners sometimes, to kneel in public for photograph that they are asking pastors to pray for them. Can we bribe God? So, beside the problem of ethnicity, is now the question of religion. What does it matter to me if you don't worship God and you go to hell? The burden is yours. If you worship him and you go to heaven, the enjoyment is yours. Just like you said, it doesn't matter whether the people come from one tribe. If they manage well, that is what matters. But when I was in the NSC, I did ask us to ask, Jega, I'm sure you have time now to return to research. Is there any correlation in terms of the level of poverty or deprivation, in terms of where former presidents, whether they were military or civilians, the level of unemployment, whether youth or middle class, the level of deprivation, the level of hunger in those villages, local governments where former presidents have come from. There is no correlation. If people have stolen, they did not steal on behalf of their communities. So for me, therefore, and this is the time to begin to discuss those issues, because I can see already a conversation around 2023, which will again lead us to this situation where merit, competence will not be the issue. What is your religion? Where do you come from? And those telling us it must come from this side or that side can't even be elected in their own family household. I think that religion and, let me put it religion, not particularly pastor or imams. They are seeking to tell us who people should vote for. It's so helpful. I don't know about hate speeches, but when I see some statement by so-called men of God, I wonder if those are men of God, where are the men of the devil? I conclude by thanking you, sir, Mr. Musa, Whiskey. I think one of you tried to contest election from Ondo, or something like that, but as you can see, editorial writing. No. You know, I was asked some tell workers, how do you decide on your editorial content? And he told me it is done by the mafia in the boardroom. There is no conference of reporters, correspondents. It is those ones in the cozy executive suite who meet between Musa, Whiskey, and others to say this is the subject. My own comrades who bring the news, they are not present. Even without quorum, you generate editorial. So when you now come to do politics, it is the same thing. Those political sharks, we say, no, this one not be tell matter. You remember what I did the book told the professor who wanted to be governor? He said, okay, Shehu, you can use one hand to carry ballot papers, the other one with a gun, and you are shooting around. He said, no, me only Shehu. He said, to ballot Shehu, you wait. I want to man Shehu, when they finish doing it, they can appoint you as secretary to government. But to be honest, I want to thank you, Professor Jega, for your very insightful presentation. We must continue to draw from your wisdom. I want to thank you, representative of Sokoto Governor, and I want to appreciate you, Mr. Peace, for standing up and be counted when Nigeria needs statesmen. You know, even where the government couldn't do it, you show that a man, just one man, can make a difference in the life of a nation. God bless you all.
Please let's keep the applause going for Comrade Adams Shomole. Thank you very much for speaking to the topic as realistically as possible. You're speaking from experience. And so, most distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to now invite my colleagues, Mr. Nusai Gibo and Mr. Onome Osifo Whiskey, to step forth and take us into this next session with some opening remarks, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. Well, distinguished speakers and ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank all of you for exercise patience, because the topic we dealt with today is one that is not exciting. You know, you don't appreciate freedom until you lose it. And when comrades and others reference those years, including my brother, the barrister, those years were in the trenches fighting for democracy. Now we have it. We don't appreciate it, and that's why we treat it with kid gloves. As you know, as part of Charles' plan to always mark every 10 years of the current democratic dispensation, we also said we will use the occasion to recognize some individuals who have played certain roles. We don't honor people because they are perfect. or because they are necessarily the best. We honor them, we recognize them. Just like, Time Magazine, every year, they have Man of the Year. And they tell you they choose them, the candidate, for good or for bad. Even Adolf Hitler made Time Man of the Year, not once, several times. We can give several examples like that. When we marked the 10 years of democracy, our brother here, distinguished Senator Shehu was one of those we honored. And I remember in 2011 or 2012, I'm sure you can recall, we met at the lobby of Sheraton Hotel. And we were lamenting the state of the nation. The fact that those who sacrificed to stand up against the military and got severely punished for it, many lost their lives, some were detained, made a very fundamental error. In 98, 99, people like him decided because we were still speaking too much grammar and asking for the moon, we must do sovereign national conference. In any case, many of those who were calling for sovereign national conference, they don't even understand what sovereign national conference meant. Here was our opportunity to finally get rid of military dictatorship. But we are still buried, they still bury their heads in the cloud, calling for sovereign national conference. And they say, okay, if you don't give us sovereign national conference, we are not going to participate in a transition program. So those who didn't fight for democracy say, thank you very much. You have created space for us. They got in there and they became entrenched. So by the time people like him got the opportunity to be elected senator, we can understand what has just happened now. But I want to tell you, my brother, you take heart. We know those who really believe in Nigeria. Many people speak a lot of grammar. Many people pretend that they love this country. Then the other thing I want to say, very quickly, they always talk about the media, the role the media will play. Professor the guy talked about it. Barrister Oyema talked about it. My brother, comrade governor, is everything. Also talked about it. And even when people approached me and said, what is TEL doing about what is happening in Nigeria? And I looked at, even those who ask this question, some of them are very educated, those who travel around the world every day, and they are confused. They feel helpless about the Nigerian condition. And they want to place the burden on the media. They ask you, what is TED doing about this? And I look at one recently, and I told him, the Sudanese people, what are they doing about their country? The Algerians, what have they done about their country? The Sudanese didn't wait for the media to push them to the street and said they've had enough of 30 years of a ruthless dictator. They walk out here and we were prepared to die for their country. The same happened in Nigeria. But here, like Fela told us many, many years ago in one of his evergreen songs, we don't want to die. Because we believe we will live forever. Nobody lives forever. Even if you live in a big golden mansion today, if you die 6 feet, no matter how beautiful your coffin is, the earth will claim you. But we will never give up on Nigeria. So, like I said, we mark the 20th anniversary of democracy in this country. The comrade governor said he's afraid. I'm sure all of us are afraid. Because if what we witnessed in the last general election is allowed to happen again in 2023, I don't see this country where my brother Dancer just said, we should not be too pessimistic about Nigeria. But we cannot help but be pessimistic, because if what happened in this year's elections are repeated again in 2023, I don't see this country surviving. For the first time, I question my judgment, my decision not to stay back in America in 1984 when I got the opportunity to do so on a platter of gold. I went for a journalism fellowship training program for 7 months. I did very well. I got a job, and the publisher of the newspaper that offered me the job said he could work the green card for me when it was much easier to do so without me returning to Nigeria. And I told him no. I was then the deputy news editor for Concord. I said, Concord sent me on this training. I was earning my full salary while I was away for 7 months. It would be a betrayal of my company if, because I got the opportunity to stay back in America, and I stayed back. And I said, no. If someone else get the chance to go for a similar training, the management may say, okay, they are not going to let him go. Today, I question that decision. Why did I come back to Nigeria? Because the way things are now, if we don't do anything about it, frankly, there's no future for our children. I'm sorry to say that. Well, we recognize about 10 people. There are so many more that we can recognize that need to be recognized. Like I just pointed out, you don't recognize people or honor them because they are perfect or because they are saints. Sometimes you recognize them for the nuisance they may seem to be. Barrister Oyema talked about tribal, our worship of ethnic identity as a bane against Nigerian unity and development. You can accuse President Obasanjo of anything under the sun. What you can't lay on him is that it's a tribal jingoist. He's the first Nigerian leader you can say is not a tribalist. There are so many other bad things you can play him about, but you can never accuse him of playing either tribal politics or being a tribal jingoist. And he's been consistent, either in his good or in his bad. But above all that is the fact that he remains one voice, because this is a country where people are afraid to talk. In a vast ocean of silence, tyranny thrives. When people choose not to talk, when people ignore the truth, when people don't stand up for what is right and for justice, tyranny thrives. You may agree or disagree with what Obasanjo says and the way he says it, but the fact that he continues to speak for this country, we believe he should be recognized. That's why we did so. The second person we recognize is also a former general. Generals have played a lot of role. We keep having them around, and they're never going to go away. The present president is also a general. We hope that he's the last of their generation who will be in power. The gentleman general, Abdulsalami Abubakar, I will call him a gentleman general because he's a former head of state. Since he stepped down from power, he has played a very pivotal role in trying to promote what Barrister Oyema spoke eloquently about, promoting the unity of this country, sustaining peace, because without peace, where you don't have peace in any environment, you can't talk about development. The best development plan will not work when there is no peace. No country grows under a condition of destructive war. We don't want Nigeria to be a Somalia or a South Sudan and so many other countries that have become failed states. So for that is advocacy for a united and peaceful Nigeria, and we said we should recognize it. Then, of course, President Goodluck Jonathan. Again, there are so many things you can criticize him for and also praise him for. But he set a benchmark for this country in terms of leadership, in terms of what we call practical patriotism. Like the comrade admitted is a politician, and Professor Joga, as former INEC chair, pointed out, elections in Nigeria especially, is a war. It's a war. And for an incumbent president to accept that I have lost an election, first, nobody expected it because we had been warned that 2015 election would be so contentious that it might lead to a breakup of the country. And let us all remember that a Nigerian president under our constitution, which was made or produced under the military, gives imaginably enormous powers to the president. In terms of the powers our president can exercise, other than dictators in a democratic setting, he's the most powerful president in the world. But it takes discipline for a person who is so privileged to restrain himself, to resist the temptation to employ those powers. That's what, despite the pressure that